Chapter 6 is in regards to group and organizations. When we're looking at groups and organizations, we have this over a past decade, a grassroots efforts and to raise awareness in regards to certain political issues that has gained in popularity type aspects. The Tea Party groups have popped out in the early in nearly every community across the country. Tea Party have, you know, charged themselves with calling awareness to any issues which challenge the security, domestic tranquility, or beloved nation type aspects. Excuse me. It's one of those situations. It's been in place. Boston Harbor, 1779 type thing. Their political stance is to support by what they refer to as the 15 non-negotiable core beliefs. And when they kind of look at this, they kind of look at it from an angle in regards to illegal aliens are here illegally. Pro demonic employment is indisputable or indispensable. Excuse me. A strong military is essential. Special interests must be eliminated. Gun owners, government must be shut down. A national budget. The list goes on, right? These are basically Tea Parters are actively seeking the impeachment for President. During this time, they looked for the impeachment of President Obama for what they refer to as flagrant violations indicating force of the nation healthcare, um, gun grabbing, failing to protect victims of terrorist attacks, the U.S. diplomatic officials from Libya and so forth. But the Tea Party, here you can see is being rallied outside of the state capitol. Um, it's been in place for years. It's something we see quite often. However, they're just groups of organizations that kind of put out in types in regards to kind of give you an example of groups and organizations on how far or how in depth or how what levels that they could actually get to. So when we're talking about types of groups, we're defining groups in regards to the aspects of, right? So basically, in layman's terms, a group is just basically affirmation one can refer to as a wide variety of gathering from just two people, um, a club, a regular gathering of friends, or people who work together or even share the same hobby. So if you want to think of a group here in this picture, you see engineering and construction students gather around a job. This is a group. They have some type of similarities, there's some type of aspects, that type of thing. When we're looking at um, the people who exist in the same place at the same time but do not interact or share a sense of identity. This bunch of people stands like in line in Starbucks. They all have something in common. They want Starbucks, but at the same time, they're considered an aggregate or a crowd. So when you're looking at, going to purchase tickets to go to a concert, you're in the same line. You're there for the same reason, but you're not part of a group. You're there for the same interest, and that's about it. Nothing more, nothing less. The next one is a category. Which is an example of basically all children born from approximately like 1980 to 2000 are referred to as millennials. This is a category. It's just easily, it's really simply just for statistics purposes, is to label groups into certain categories to make it just easier for statistics. That's all it's for. It's nothing major. Just it's able to break down groups into different categories. Um, so when they all became groups, it was, more or less like who didn't know each other might become friendly or dependent in that type of aspects. But when you're looking at that bigger picture, when we're looking at type of groups, what type of groups do we really fall into? Do we fall more into a primary group or do we feel more into a secondary group? Primary groups play most critical roles in our lives. Primary groups are usually fairly small, and it's made up of individuals who generally engage face to face in long term emotional ways. Um, so expression functions rather than pragmatic ones. So when you're looking at the difference in between the primary and secondaries, and I'll repeat, primary is that face to face. Secondary is more of the external function, right? They're a lot larger, they're impersonal, has to be task force and one time limited. They're and like I said, they're instrumental function rather than for an expressive one, meaning that the roles is a moral goal or task oriented one versus emotional. So the biggest difference between the primary and secondary group, primary group is small, consisting of emotional face-to-face relationships, and secondary is a large and impersonal. Best way to keep them separated. When you're looking at in-group and out-of-group dynamics, in-group is more or less, and this is Sumner that came up with the terms of in-group and out-group. In-group and is um, an individual that feels like he or she belongs to, and he or she believes that it is a eternal part of who they are. An out group is controversially in a group someone doesn't belong to. Often we feel um, competitiveness in a relationship in the out group. So this is more of those sports team unions, that type of aspects. So when we're looking at the best example to give this for members of sorority like a Delta Delta Delta, advertise their pledges not to socialize with members of pledges of the rival sorority, like the Stigma Delta Theta. Those are the difference between in groups, out groups. The Delta Delta Deltas will be more of an out group type aspects. To give you an example. When we're looking at groups in general, we also have what we call reference groups. Reference groups is basically a group that people compare themselves to. It provides a standard of measurements. Peer groups are common for reference groups. Um, we look at for people to have more than one reference group. So someone in middle school boys might look at not just his classmates, but also maybe his older brother's friends type aspects. That is what a reference group is. So when we're looking at a reference group, it could be defined as groups in which an individual, I'll spit that out, sorry guys, a group to which an individual compares himself or herself, right? So if you say, you start high school, you want to join a basketball team, you start looking at your teammates and your friends for cues on how to behave at dances in the hallway or even in the classroom. You are basically referring to your reference groups on how you're supposed to behave and act. So kind of give you an example in regards to that aspects. Best way to summarize it and give you a really breakdown in regards to making it make sense. Same thing in this type of aspects when you're looking at this type of sorority, kind of understanding the diversity between, behind it, what works does and what doesn't. This could be defined as more of an out group, in group, maybe out group kind of gives you the difference in between. And then you have, dyads, triads, and large groups. A dyad is the smallest group that you could possibly have. It's only two people. A triad is three members or more, or actually three members. Let me just stop there. Triad, three. And then if a person withdraws from a group that no longer exists, right? It's a former type of aspects. It's that larger group that we look into. Some of the larger groups that we look into are um, more um, difficult. The larger the group, the less responsibilities that have go on. The smaller the groups, the more responsibility that end up happening. So if you look at a dyad, it's only two people. And there's a lot of responsibilities between those two people. You increase the third person, which is a triad. Now you have three. Your responsibilities kind of anticipate and kind of go down. However, in between those three people, you have six different relationships going on in between there because you have three people, each want to have a relationship with one another. When you have a group of like 7 individuals, you can have up to 21 different relationships. So therefore, the responsibilities of that group kind of expands, and it kind of goes upon everybody else to make sure that the responsibilities kind of get diverted out a little bit more. When you're looking at group leaderships, you have different types of leadership functions, which refers to the main function of goal of that leader. So the first one that you have is an instrumental leader. This is one who is goal oriented and largely concerned with accomplishments set task. I'll repeat that one again. Instrumental leader is a goal oriented and large concerned with accomplishment set task. Um, you also then have an expressive leader who is more concerned with promoting emotional strength and health and ensuring that people are feeling supported. So, kind of know the difference in between those two. When we're looking in regards to even more in regards to those leadership type aspects, we have our United States that has our United States government is a form of like a bureaucratic system. So when you're looking at that bureaucratic system, there's also type of leadership titles that kind of go within that as well. Because you have different types of leader titles, which is a democratic leader, which is encourage people's participation to all decision making. You have more of a liaison leader, which is more of a hands off, allowing group members and self manage and make their own decisions. And then you have an authoritarian leader, which is an individual that leads a clear instructional, strong forces, uh, with strong focus on meeting goals and making sure rules are being followed and more of that aspects, that authoritarian figure aspects. So you can kind of see the different, aspects in regards to the different types of groups that you can have. You can have a dyad, a triad, or a large group. And then you have your group leaders, which is an instrumental leader with the expressive leader. And that can have different styles that kind of go along with that as well, which is either a democratic, a liaison, or an authoritarian type aspects. When you're looking at conformity, conformity is an extent. Oops. Conformity is more of the extent to which an individual complies with group norms and expectations. You could kind of look at this as like a kind of go to a shop at the Express for a new school year, because of all of the certain friends, they're going to be shopping at PacSun or, at the major places, maybe Hollister or, Macy's or wherever it might be. You want to be able to conform to the style that everybody else is doing, right? Um, we use this as a reference group to access the understanding on how to act and dress and behave. Conformity is very similar to that as well. We want to conform with the way how society is looks or acts or is behaving. So we tend to conform to those aspects as well. Sociologist Solomon Osh conducted an experiment that illustrated how great the pressure to conform is specifically within small groups, which is more or less peer pressure that comes down to it. Uh, he did this experiment. Only one of the people sitting in the group, it was a group of 8, was a true subject. All the rest of them didn't know, but he presented these cards that had a line on one, and then on the other card had like 3 lines, and you had to match what was on on card one versus on card two. But because of the peer pressure to conform, the one person that was part of the experiment was able to change everybody's mind even though they were wrong. So it's kind of one of those aspects. It's really impressive to see how easily it is for individuals to fall into that conformity aspects because of that peer pressure. So it's just kind of one of those, you know, like I said, one of those issues that kind of fall into place. When we're looking at the term, um, of formal organizations. These are basically a high bureaucratic type situations. When we're talking about a bureaucratic, it's an ideal type of formal organizations, meaning that it's best. It has set rules, it's set obligations, written laws it's expected to follow, right? It's one of those situations. These are types of formal organizations. You can see Girl Scout troops, correction facilities are both types of formal organizations, right? There's set rules, there's set things that you have to follow. If you don't follow, you get in trouble. It's that easily to kind of put in place. When you're looking at from formal organizations fall into three categories, which is a normative organization, which is also called a voluntary association based on shared interest. All right. Cohesive organization, which are groups that must push or join, include prison or rehabilitation centers. Symbolic interaction. Individual Goffman states that most of our organizations are total institutions. In other words, total institution is one of which imitates or military soldiers live in control lifestyles and in which total resocialization takes place as well. So think of that degradation ceremony and then have to be resocialized. Okay. The third type is the utilitarian organizations, which is the name suggests, are joined because of the need of a specific material reward. Excuse me. So high school and workplace fall into this category. One joined in pursuit of a diploma, the other one is to make money. So those are type of different aspects in regards to when we're looking at formal organizations and how do they fall in regards to this hierarchy type level. When we're looking at Bureaucratic systems, you have that hierarchy of authority, right? Which refers to aspects, which is places one's individual or office in charge of another, who in turn must answer own superior type questions, right? You have a clear division of labor, which refers to the fact within that bureaucratic system, each individual has specific tasks to perform. So, I mean, for my case, like if a psychology professor teaches psychology or sociology, they don't attempt to provide students with financial aid information or forms or anything else. Like my job is to teach you guys sociology. I'm not going to be telling you how to be a counselor or a social worker. It's not my field of study, so therefore I shouldn't be telling you how to do it. Explicit rules refers to the ways in which rules are outlined within written down and standardized. Um, I give you guys guidelines in regards to follow there's student handbooks, there's employee handbooks. Those handbooks are basically those rules, right? Explicit rules. The final bureaucratic system that characterizes impersonality, which takes personal feelings out of professional situations. We tend to protect that organization, you know, make sure that our we're kind of not putting our biased feelings out there. We're kind of keeping that impersonal. And then we have what we have mediocrities, meaning that hiring and promoting on the basis are based on the proven and document skills rather than on the random choice type aspects. So when we're looking at the mediocrity definition, it's a bureaucracy where memberships and advancements is placed on a proven and documented skill. So it's not on a whim, it's not on a random system, it's what you could prove in regards to what you can and cannot do. Excuse me. When we're looking at McDonaldization society, McDonaldization refers to the increasing presence um, of a fast food business model in common social institutions. Um, so when we're looking at McDonald's, we know the Golden Arches, we know McDonald's has the Big Mac, the chicken nuggets, the fries, the whatever, whatnot, right? When you're looking at a McDonaldization of society, the business model includes an efficient um, efficiency of division labor, predictability, calculability, the control, monitoring, all those aspects. So even though this one is a storefront in Egypt, shows a McDonaldization of society, it's McDonald's. Believe it or not, if you walked into this McDonald's, you could order and see everything that you would see here in the States. Um, it's identical. That is what they're talking about, a McDonaldization of society, is that even though it's in another country, it's the exact same menu. It has a set order in regards to how it runs, the efficiency, the labor, right? The predictability, what's on their menu, the accountability, how much is it worth, the control, in other words, the monitoring of all the aspects, right? How much meat gets put on, how much the slice, how much seasoning, what, buns go with what hamburgers, how much fries go in, how much salt goes on. All of that stuff is called McDonaldization. It's just the way how it functions. It's called a type of a bureaucratic system when it comes to companies like this. Like I said, it doesn't matter where you're at, you're going to get the exact same food, even though you might be in a different country. So when you're looking at um, the aspects of fast jobs in the fast foods will enjoy stronger than advantage growth in the upcoming years. As you can see, fast food workers, servers in fast foods and that type of aspects, it's increased over the years to kind of show the expectations in regards to um, kind of how the job roles are going. Um, course of organizations are famous satellites or court order to enter into rehabilitation centers to eliminate um, like drug use addiction, alcohol addiction. Those are types of course of organizations. It's a societal to become a member of. It's sometimes it's by choice, sometimes it's not. So it's kind of one of those aspects in regards to understanding what that cohesive organization is. And like I said, it's an organization that people do not voluntarily join, such as prison or mental hospitals type aspects, right? And then when you look at Unitarian organizations, this is an organization that are joined to fill a specific material need. So whether if it's a local community college, um, to become an engineer later down the road, it's something that you join to be part of to gain access to. So kind of keep those in mind in regards to those last two. I know I kind of went over them kind of quickly. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out, text, email, phone call, either way. I'm here to assist.